Hello everybody, the Lord Root here, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Play Kerbal Space Program Career Mode. Today we actually have quite a big deal going on. If I can get KSP to come back up, it appears I've been running into issues a little bit with keys sticking, so it's hopefully it will come back up. I wasn't even sure if the video was recording at this point. Apparently not. There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. We are recording now. And I thought I would go ahead and, get this thing, going. We're gonna go put a space station around Minmus today. And you can see we have a lot of different things going on. We're using our new main cell engines and our Rockamax engines as well. And we've completely redesigned the way that the space station works. We have our tri-coupler design in lieu of our docking port senior, the big docking ports. I guess they're called clampetrons. And we also have this cupola module on the top, which is nice because it gives us a little window that we can look out of. With that having been said, this thing weighs in only around maybe 9 tons or so once everything is said and done. And this particular launch stage is a little bit overpowered for it, but nonetheless, we will, we will go ahead and launch it, and it looks like we may lose some of our, some of our canards here, maybe not. I guess not canards, but tailplanes. We'll just hope for the best. It seems like we've actually done alright with that, so we'll get ourselves up to a respectable speed and we will cut down on the throttle by quite a bit. This is a very massive launch stage here. I haven't really tested it to see how well it can do, but I'm assuming that it should be able to get into low Kerbin orbit. It should be able to put maybe 100 tons or so. It is very massive, to say the least, but we're taking this thing all the way to Minmus, so we're going to want as much fuel as we can get out of these. And I'm just going to cut down on the throttle quite a bit. We're already way faster than we need to be. We don't want to waste too much in terms of fuel efficiency. Although we inevitably will, but we're going to get up to, we're going to get up to a fairly respectable height here. And we're about to drop our first set of tanks. And so, we'll get ready to do that. Yeah, hopefully it won't take too long to do. It should take maybe about 5 minutes for us to get up into orbit with our planned trajectory. So we'll just go ahead, this thing is working pretty well so far. This next stage we're probably going to drop, I don't know, maybe around 11 or 13K, or 11 or 13 Yeah, 11 or 13K or so. You'll have to forgive me, I just woke up. I actually meant to record this last night, but I fell asleep, so um, that's been happening. I'm on a somewhat different schedule than I'm used to. I probably wouldn't be awake this early usually. It's about 5:45 in the morning right now, and so it's a bit early for me, but nonetheless, we will get this thing in orbit fairly easily, and we're about to do our gravity turn now here at 9,000 because with all the gimbling, we can actually do it pretty well. And in fact, one of the issues with this rocket stage here for this particular payload is that it's a bit on the powerful side. So we have to be careful. If we put this thing on full throttle, we will actually end up um, with, you know, a very quick, you know, change in our time to apoapsis, which is, I mean, worse things can happen, but, you know, we don't want to reach it too quickly because we are tilting down just a little bit. I'm just going to throttle up a wee bit. As you can see, we're already at 28 seconds to apoapsis here. And we're already very slightly off of our 90 degrees. And it's probably time for us to start turning in a little bit. Now in this case, we don't mind a little bit of inclination because Minmus is on an inclined orbit. But we will want to be paying attention to our engines just to just to make sure that we don't really overdo it. You can see here we are beginning to raise our apoapsis quite a fair amount. I'm going to bring this up to, I don't know, maybe about, um, 90 kilometers. That seems to be the best way for us to do it. And hopefully when we do this, we'll raise our apoapsis a fair amount, or periapsis rather. And then we'll time accelerate to make up the difference. At least we're almost out of the soupy part of the atmosphere. I think that would be a good place for us to, stop. So let's look at this. We'll time accelerate a little bit, just until we get out of this atmosphere. And we're actually doing a pretty good job at this. We'll we'll do this. We'll raise our apoapsis just a little bit, and in doing so, we'll also raise our periapsis as well. And when we do that, we'll reduce the amount of energy needed for us to get into orbit, because we will need a fair amount of it. Maybe what we'll do here is we'll just burn a little bit more. I think we're going to we're going to hit our outside the atmosphere pretty easily. And so what we might as well be doing at this point is, you know, burning slightly right of prograde so that, we end up with a fairly high periapsis so that, we don't really have to worry about it too much. Because that will mean less energy for us that we're going to account for. So we'll put on time acceleration, get ourselves out of the atmosphere, and we're going to have an 81K orbit or so. So we are out of the atmosphere now, and that is going to be good news for us because that means that we are more or less. Well, that might explain part of it. I didn't really manage my fuel efficiently there. I probably should have dropped those tanks, but it's nice to know we can get out of the atmosphere regardless of that. So let's see, we're at 90 kilometers versus 89. You know what, I'll take that, because even though that puts us in a higher orbit, it's only like 2 seconds of burn, and we have plenty of delta V. We have more than enough to get to where we want to go. At any rate, we want to do some other things as well. We want to find and target Minmus, which hopefully we'll be able to do. It seems to be giving us a little bit of grief here trying to do that. Maybe it's because we're not circularized, in which case we'll do that a little bit later on. But anyway, this station will support itself for a little while. That was not. Whoa. That could or could not be bad. It doesn't look like we really lost anything critical. If we did, then we're in trouble. But it looks like we're okay for now. It looks like just those fuel tanks exploded. I hadn't really tested this with with our with those fuel tanks on the side, because I usually jettison them and I just totally forgot about it. At any rate, we're coming up pretty quickly on our. In fact, we overdid it just a hair, but that'll be okay. I mean, we don't have to have this thing perfect. And in fact, we won't. But that's okay. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be perfectly circular. Now we're at least circularized. Let's set Minmus as our target. And we'll be coming up on the spurn here to get our ascending node down. How much delta V will it take? That's a very good question. I am going to lower that ascending node quite a bit. This isn't the most efficient way to do it, but we will nonetheless be be closer out. So let's see. So we are already off inclination. I didn't really do much there, did I? We'll just bring this down to as close as we can, which I'm thinking is going to be about point one is pretty good actually. And so we'll do that, and then we'll get ourselves in orbit around Minmus. So that's quite a bit of an inclination change we're going to need. But it'll be worth it. I mean, it'll make it easier for us to get our encounter, and this is factored into the fuel budget just a little bit. And so we'll start that burn. Not immediately, but probably around between 4 and 3. And we will have enough, we'll just burn a little bit down to account for that. We do have enough fuel now to where we can set up an encounter, which is what we're going to want. So let's get this thing set up. Figure out how close we're going to have to be. Now the main deal is that we want to be we don't have our free return trajectory set up, so what we want to check when we do this is we want to make sure we're coming out. I mean, we're going to get a free return trajectory regardless, but we want to make sure whatever we do that we're going to end up on the right side, and it looks like we are. I mean, it's going to, in this case, we are going the proper direction, so let's just, get back to Münar Station as our focus. We'll quick save just in case, but we should be okay. And we'll zoom back in here to get on the right side. I believe we're going to be somewhere down here because of where we are in our orbit. We're about, I don't know, 90 to 180 degrees off, so maybe we're not going to be that close. But, we will have this thing, pretty close to our target orbit. And so we're going to need this for sure. And I'm not sure, given the amount of Delta V I have. We should be able to pull it off, I think, because we still have half our fuel. We need about another 200 meters per second to brake or to do our capture. And that will get us more or less set up. So we'll get ourselves right onto that node marker. We got 27 seconds to burn. So I'm going to start burning at maybe 13 or so. And that will give us about enough for us to get captured. We may need to do some tweaking. However, we should more or less be at this point in orbit of Minmus pretty soon. And that's going to be a good thing. We still have 11 meters per second to burn, so there we go. We still don't. There we go. I'll take that, even though that may or may not be the best way to do it. We still have a fair amount of fuel left, though. I think we're going to be able to pull off the burns we need. We will just have to see. If not, then I do have something I can attach to and of course that's going to happen. This happens occasionally when you're trying to get into orbit around Minmus, because the moon sometimes gets in the way. It does slightly screw up your it does slightly screw up your encounter. Well, let's just see what the separation is, if there is any separation whatsoever. If we can't do this, then there will be issues. And you see, I'm trying very hard here not to miss that encounter, because we will have an encounter. See, there we go. And we are in fact on the right side, the side we want to be. The reason we're doing this is so that we can get we can get our encounter very easily. So we're going to bring this down to about 20k or thereabouts. That way it's going to be easy for us to get exactly where we need to be. And we did waste some fuel getting down here, but on the flip side, we should be able to do our inclination change pretty easily. Now, we're not exact, of course, and that's going to be an issue. I mean, we may actually have, to get this more or less, spot on. But we have an hour in order to do that, so that's a 5-second burn we gotta do. So yeah, we're getting pretty close now. As you can see, we are somewhat inclined with respect to the planet's rotation, or I guess the moon's rotation. But we'll just get this thing down to about 10 seconds or so. We're definitely close enough. I'm gonna burn maybe about now. And this will, going ahead and getting the orbit set now will give us plenty of time to do corrections for inclination. We're actually a little bit higher than I had intended. We don't want this thing to get too high. But there's very little, like, this becomes a bit of a control issue, and we could, in fact, move this thing quite, quite easily. And so the question is, do we want to wait for doing the inclination change, now or later? You know what, 25 is going to be good, because, we're not going to do much better on that. It's a little bit better here, though, to be a bit higher than lower. Now, unfortunately, we do not have the, we do not have the ability to look at our inclination. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, even though it would make sense, in fact, it would make sense right now to lower our ascending node because of where we're at. Make sure we're not too deeply inclined, so it should be easy enough to deal with. But, one of the issues is that we have no way of really telling our inclination besides just eyeballing it. So, yeah, we'll get. Let's see, we're fairly well inclined. I think that's about the right inclination. So what we'll do is we'll take our periapsis and we'll just begin to circularize. So we'll get down to, and at this point we really do want to get in close, because we've got 11 hours of burn time to worry about, and we need to zoom in. Unfortunately, it can be difficult to make these adjustments as needed, so what we'll do is we'll bring this guy in just a little bit, and we'll get ourselves down to a proper orbit. Not one that'll cause us to crash in any way. But get this guy down. No, don't change the inclination. That's the wrong thing to do. Let's try this again. 26 over 27. I'm gonna bring this down to 20. Oh, because 20 is about the right height for us. We could probably even bring it down lower, but, that would probably be, a little bit too much. So the question is well, first of all, where is our prograde marker? That's kind of interesting. We'll be coming up on that really soon. So we are actually quite a deal more inclined than I intended for us to be. That's something we're going to want to fix before, before we, do much else. But, yeah, we'll bring this guy down quite a good deal. I mean, on the one hand, our inclination is about where we need it to be. We just need to do some adjustments so we come down over the horizon. And that will more or less be us pretty soon. So let's go ahead. We'll burn at about 1 second at this point. It's not going to matter too much. Let's see, periapsis is what, 23? We want a periapsis of, what is up with my shift key? We are at about 19. We'll use RCS to adjust that later. The main thing we want to worry about now is getting our inclination in order. And we'll do that by burning south at this ascending node. I burned the wrong way, I think, because I was burning north. It's kind of hard for me to remember. But we will, we'll get up to our descending node, and that will not take too long, hopefully. I mean, at this point, we are, we're about to hit that point. And you'll notice we've been in orbit now for, I don't know, about 2 days. That is a lot more inclined than I would have hoped, though. That's, and I'm hoping we'll get this thing, to flatten out pretty easily. It seems to me, however, that that is not going to be the case. This is, wow, this is turning out to be quite a deal. Let's do this. Just place a thing up here. Or, descending node will probably be easier at this point. We want to lower our, well, let's see, which way is the planet rotating? We do want to lower that some. And I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, why even bother at this point? And, well, the reason is it'll make our station easier to get to. But that is more or less in line with the rotation of the we'll get rid of that. That has no business being here. See what we were doing. We should have been burning north. It'll give us an easy target to hit, and we'll be a couple of degrees off, but that'll be okay for us. I mean, we don't really care as much about being, just a couple of degrees off. Or maybe not degrees, but, fractions of a degree. And it looks like we did miss our burn very slightly. But, that'll be okay. That will mean that we're going to be very close very soon. And we have a grand total of 31 meters per second in order to make that. Probably, it's probably a decent change in delta V just because, or change in, change in delta V, but I mean, we got plenty of fuel. That main cell engine is, in fact, a little bit too powerful for this precision work we're doing. These are just rough adjustments that we're making, too. I mean, it's, at some point, we will want to, make this thing very, very close to, very close to our target. So we're gonna go ahead, we'll burn now. That will bring our inclination down quite a bit. So are we on the... It's difficult to tell if we're actually too inclined here. I mean, I'm going to say probably. We probably are just a little bit too inclined, so I'm going to lower that just a little bit more. And we'll call that, we'll call that our orbit for now, because it's difficult to tell really which way the planet is spinning. And tell you the truth, I can't really be bothered by it. I mean, as long as we're close by the equator, then we'll actually be okay. But at any rate, we're going to bring down our apsis just a little bit. And that will unfortunately have the side effect of lowering our nope, I went to don't set there we go. This is let's do 20 or so. It's 24. If you could see how minute these changes are. I mean, I think we actually... So we're not as... We are not as well adjusted as we could be. I think maybe I will correct back for that. Even though it's not the ascending node, it's fairly clear that we are off, because if you look at the prograde marker, we want that thing to be centered right about 90 or so. So yeah, several adjustments after the fact, we should be okay. We'll just, we'll just give it a little bit more juice. It's another thing with the maneuver nodes that I don't like as much is, they are fairly difficult to use in this situation, where you're so close in that it's difficult to tell what your inclination is, or your not just your inclination but your height, because it tries to render over the text. Well, enough of that. We're going to move on forward here. And we'll try to do this burn as effectively as possible. Oh, well, that's no good. You can't win, can you? However, if we do look at our prograde marker, we're at least, yeah, we're actually at the right inclination, I think. So our apoapsis is 26. We'll just do one final circularization of this. We don't want our periapsis to drop too low. And this will probably make it drop too low. I mean, we're going to want our periapsis at 20 or so. You know what? 21 is actually good enough, though. I think, we'll be just fine this way. And given that we're in an equatorial orbit, you know, we'll have a lot of benefits from that. So now it's about time for us to practice our burn. And, we will be pretty close by, I think. I have on my clock, it's been about 30 to 45 minutes, so I'm going to try and make the other launch brief because we are going to attach a module to this. And of course, there we go. That's going to be close enough. Really, part of the issue is that we have too much in the way of thrust on this, so we're just going to well, we need to do a couple of things first. We're going to want to extend our solar panels, which we really should have done to begin with, and we're going to decouple this you know, this insertion stage. I'm actually a little bit surprised at how well the entire thing went. I mean, we are, you know what we're going to do also? We're going to do another thing. We're going to control from here, of course, and rename the vessel so that it's a space station. And once we do that, we're going to get this thing pointed in the south so that it's a bit easier to dock, and also when we release these things we won't worry about hitting the station. Because the last thing we want to do is spend all of this time and all of our hard work getting this thing, you know, losing this thing. So we'll undock, decouple node, and undock. And that'll mean that, well, first of all, we are still in about the right orbit. We're going to want to point prograde at this point. Now, why prograde? Because prograde happens to be the direction in which these thrusters will fire. And do we have the energy? We do. So if you look at this, this will bring us down within, you know, the orbit of Minmus. Or down within the surface. So we now have our station here. We'll just have to deal with that minor inclination change. So now that we have that, we also have one other module we're going to dock to it. The reason we're going to go ahead and dock it is because it's going to give us things that we really need to start exploring the moon. One of the consequences of large control is that we've got these huge RCS tanks that are replacing the side-mounted ones. That will increase balance. It's got some space station expansion on it. It's got loads more power, and it's got these large transmitters, which are nice. The reason we want those is because they'll actually send science back faster. And we've also got this thing set up so that there's a secondary stage, a transfer stage. Because as it turns out, this entire thing is around 30 tons. This is the more massive, definitely the more massive part of our space station, which we may yet extend on if, we look at, possibly, um, mining Minmus. Not just for science, but also for, also for other things like kethane. That will make a lot of sense for us. So we'll just go ahead. We'll put ourselves in orbit. Again, we do have a lot of fuel on this stage. It's probably a little bit um faster than necessary, but um and I don't know if this thing is missing keystrokes because of the game lag or what, but this will do a pretty good job of giving us all the resources we need for that. So we'll just jettison that stage. We're gonna have to be careful up here because if we're not too careful, we will we'll overdo our burn just a little bit. We won't just overdo it, we'll drop these fuel tanks into our stage and blow the entire thing up. Fortunately, this thing isn't manned, but it will, at some point cause us issues if we're not careful. And so that's something we've got to look into. We'll start our gravity turn about now. And I'm not going to drop those immediately because I really don't want to drop them, while this thing is rotating. But yeah, needless to say, this launcher is by far one of the more overpowered launchers. And I guess I could... We are moving a little bit slowly. Or are we? I mean, that's kind of the decision we have to make here. If we run this thing on full power, we're going to end up with not enough vertical velocity. In reality, we want to at least start doing our insertion, the rest of our insertion, around 30 or so kilometers per second. So, yeah, we're going to set that up now. And this time we're not going to carry along those tanks, because I never really intended to do that in the first place. But we definitely don't want that. It's now time for us to kick up our, we're gonna kick up our throttle just a bit. And so, what we're going to use the stage for is we're going to use it for giving us our inclination change. And you know what? We might as well give the throttle. Well, we don't have to give it too much more juice. Tell you the truth, we are doing well on our fuel. Just to be sure, that is about right. Okay, we want to start bringing, try to raise up our periapsis just a little bit. And I'm going to bring this thing up, given our height, I'm going to bring it up to about 87. That way we can sort of depend on drag to bring us down. This, as it turns out, has been a much better flight, despite the fact that it's really supposed to be a bit harder. But as you can see, we have quite a bit more energy. The orbit's not decaying, which is nice. So we have just enough delta V to affect that inclination change we're going to want. That's going to be important for us. We're already in orbit, or not necessarily in orbit, but we're in space. And what we'll do is we'll have to be careful. We don't want this thing too high. So we want this just high enough that let's see, what's our periapsis now? 85. We want it to be more or less circular. That's about 52 meters per second at delta V, which is not really all that much. And so we will, let's see if we can target Minmus, that would be good. And chances are probably not. I'm gonna get poised to burn here, and then we'll set up our inclination change pretty soon. So let's just do that. This thing is not so easy to fly, but we'll be doing better whenever we drop the amount of mass we have. So we're more or less centered on our marker here. We'll just bring this down to a reasonable height. And we'll get this thing going. Fortunately for us, we do have RCS for making moderate changes. Let's see. The question is our apsis high enough? That's not as high as I would have liked, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so let's zoom out. Let's target Minmus, and let's affect this inclination change, which will unfortunately be coming up pretty soon. However, we won't have much in the way of, I mean, we'll have to definitely. Is that the ascending node? We want to. That's the descending node. We want to bring this thing down quite a bit. That's going to take up most of the remainder of our fuel. At some 200 something meters per second delta V, and we can use the RCS to finish that. I mean, we might as well use as much of it as we can in an attempt to get this thing lined up, because we're not going to have enough to do much of anything else. So we'll get this thing lined up. We're burning north, so we need to we need to move on down. That will be coming up pretty soon. So we got 10 minutes from now where we're going to make this burn happen. You know what, we might as well quick save now, even though I guess there's no real point to doing so. Okay. Come on. And we are just a bit late. But you know what? I'll adjust our descending node just a little bit. There we go. Now we have just that sliver of fuel left, so what we're going to do now is we are going to stage. And that will hopefully bring us down quite a bit due to the Oberth effect. Let's just see how far our apsis goes. We'll have to run time acceleration for a bit, but that will eventually crash into the ground thanks to the magic of aero braking. The question is going to be, are we going to have an encounter? And the answer apparently is... No. Oh, there we go. There's our encounter. That's 2 minutes from now, so let's make sure we're focused on Minmus. And we will have our encounter, it turns out. We're going to be on the right side again, so it's... I mean, I could make the change very easily. But, you know, I want to actually get this thing, in orbit with the least amount of fuel possible. While we're doing that, I'm going to give us some energy. Because we probably want to burn around, oh, I don't know, it'd be good to burn maybe around 19 seconds or so. So we have time to deploy these. And they will be useful for us because, we have a probe on here, and of course, probes have the disadvantage that they take power. So let's just get this thing burning now. And we will want to, you know, we'll want to get this orbit out. It looks like we've moved very slightly. That probably has implications regarding our inclination. Not very big ones, though. And it seems like we underestimated the burn a bit, because I guess it's using, the way it's calculated, it was supposed to, I guess, go around a minute or so. And I totally forgot about that, so we're going to have to, what we're going to have to do at this point is, let's see, if we do RCS, does it increase or decrease it? And for that matter, which side of the planet are we going to be on? Let's just kill that maneuver node and try to figure this out. That is going to be Minmus. We may, you know, after all that, we may have to worry about getting in front of Minmus. Yeah, we are in fact in front of Minmus, which means we probably want to burn forward just a little bit. You know, fortunately for us, we do have some recourse there since we're close by in our apoapsis. We're gonna want to kick this thing. You know, we're gonna want to kick this thing. We're gonna want to rotate it around a bit. think that's been part of the issue the entire time is that we, there we go. That's our Minmus encounter there, and that's our Minmus exit. We, of course, do not want to crash into the planet. That would be bad, to say the least. And we do want a phasing orbit going on. That's about a 3-second burn, it looks like. So let's see. Our current encounter is not going to be all that great. I guess what I'll do at this time is account for the inevitable, and I will take some of this fuel and place it in the tanks. Now, we don't have nearly as much of, nearly as many things to worry about this time, because the, part of the deal is going to be the fact that in the last one we actually had to worry about getting a proper inclination. And we didn't quite know what our inclination was. At this time we actually have a reference. I'm not going to burn it full power this time. I'm going to burn it a half burn, I think, so we can be a little bit more accurate. What is our current encounter? That is not good enough. And of course, we are going to have to worry about this thing being on the wrong side. Unfortunately, the timing is very slightly off. And we are again in front of Minmus. That's part of the deal with doing, our Minmus burn. It's maybe there's a way far out that we can make this adjustment, because we don't really, we don't want to, oh, come on. That is, why can I not change that? That is extremely irritating. I'm gonna leave map mode real quick. Maybe I can kill that maneuver node. There we go. Well, there's not much that can be done about that now, I don't think. I think we're committed to burning, and that is going to be that. However, we'll see when we get over there. I mean, It does look like it'll be slightly forward when we get down there. It's just, we don't want to overdo it. I mean, I think when we enter that orbit, that will be Minmus. Oh, we are on the right side. However, we don't have much time to our name in getting this orbit taken care of. We have, well, I guess we have 2 hours. It's not the worst that could happen, but we'll circularize this thing utilizing the Obert effect in the process. And while we're at it, we might as well. I guess we can't really select that target because that is going to be um, difficult at best. 500 versus 506. Can we do better? 506 versus 513. 509, 506. I don't know if it's doing this largely because 504 versus 506. I think that's the best we're going to do. That actually does give us a fairly low eccentricity. So we will go ahead and, you know, we'll get this thing um, set up properly. If I can find my maneuver node, I mean, it's going to be somewhere up here, undoubtedly. And if it's up here, it probably means that we're very heavily inclined. Which is not the best thing for us to hope for, but we'll take it. And there goes my alarm clock on my phone telling me that it's 7 o'clock. I guess I should. Some video editing is definitely in order here because I've been at it for about an hour and 15 minutes. And this may take another 30. But, we're on our marker now. And we'll just, we'll let this thing count us down. We have about a 12-second burn here. So, yeah, we're going to, I guess we'll increase it just a little bit. Get down to about a minute so we can make any corrections that we want to do. And I think the best place for us to burn here is about 6 or so. And we are more or less stable at this point, so we'll go ahead and burn. Hopefully not too much. And we'll use, we'll use RCS to trim that out a bit, since we have it. And I'm gonna call that uh, not as circular as I want, but there's really nothing we can do about it. So we don't want the Great Flat Speck. Let's zoom in a little bit because, well, that is a very, well, we are very heavily inclined here. That is, a little bit more inclined than I really wanted to be. However, with this, we will be able to make a more accurate inclination change. That's 0.02. That's probably good enough for now. I mean, we are a little bit further out, but we can change that a bit. So we are burning, I believe, north. And that will get us set up pretty well, I think. Given the inclination we have now, that's going to be another 5 hour burn, though. Or 5 hours of whatchamacallit, of waiting. So let's get as close as we can. And you can see our space station is spinning around like mad. But yeah, we're going to get this thing down pretty quickly. We might just burn 1 second in or so. At this range, it won't matter too much because you know, we are very slightly we are moving at such a speed that we will you know, we will get this thing going the way we want it to. So I'm gonna start our burn maybe about 3 seconds, just so that we can be more accurate. And what is our inclination now? Our inclination is actually pretty low. That's another 15 minutes that we're going to have to wait for in order to get this thing set up. So we'll try to get this thing as close to 500 as we can. 483. 489. 494. Can we do just a little bit better? 495. 499 versus 498. I think that's probably the best we're going to be able to do in this instance. So we'll get circularized and we will start phasing, or I guess not phasing, but you know, we'll get our phase orbit set up and then we will attempt to make this burn happen. So Yeah, we're getting very close to this docking. And I'm not quite sure how long it'll take. I'm thinking it'll take about 10 seconds, so I'm going to start burning around 5 or so. I mean, it's there we go. That is so close that the maneuver node system is wigging out, so let's just um let's just see if we can find a way to get this thing, in here and get ourselves an intercept. Well, I just had it. That is about 30 meters per second at delta V, and that yields us a separation of, I don't know, 13K or so. No, don't do that. Now we're gonna have so much potential energy here. It's 1.2 kilometers. It's not a bad start. We're gonna have so much in the way of potential energy that we will need to be careful. But yeah, um we'll get this burn going on. It's gonna take about an hour of waiting. And that's about 1 second's worth of burn. Which means I'm going to maybe give it about 2 seconds or so. And one of the issues we're going to run into on approach okay, that was not the intended. That was not the intended orbit. Unfortunately, my control and shift keys seem to be wearing out just a bit. But that's not going to matter as much. Let's see. There we go. We'll just make fine adjustments from there, which, it can't even really tell at this point what it's going to, what it wants to do. However, we are getting close by. Which means we'll want to slow down a lot. And we got about 7 minutes until that point, so you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna time warp just a little bit until we get maybe within 30 seconds. Really, it doesn't even have to be within 30 seconds. 30 seconds is probably cutting it a little bit close. But we're going to want to start braking pretty soon, so I'm going to give it about a minute or so. And that will come on. There we go. We'll just get that as close to 0 as possible. And we're getting to the point to where we do want to, okay, our separation is a bit much at this point. And we're going to pick up some energy this way. I mean, the one thing we do not want to do is fly past this thing. Let's see, where is the station at? We're 1.3 kilometers. I'm going to, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at that. And because we're so close to our target, we will, you know, we'll cancel out most of the relative velocity there. I think about 5 meters per second will do us well. We're 0.2 kilometers away. Maybe just a little bit more. And we are going to very slowly pick up speed as we do this. But yeah, we're close in now. We do want to you know, we'll begin slowing on down. You might ask, you know, why are we using RCS for this? And the main reason is, or because at this point, RCS is exactly what we need. And, yeah, that'll get us nulled out pretty well. Now, the one thing we need to do here is, I'm not exactly sure what's causing this issue, but for some reason, this thing does not want to stay, you know, aligned, and I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it has to do with our inclination, or maybe not, I don't know. What I do know is that it's time for us to dock now, so we'll set that as our target, and we will burn towards it, because we still are quite a fair bit of a deal away. And then we will point north after we get close enough. Oh, about a meter per second or so will do it, I think. We will just have to wait. And we do want to be somewhat careful. But I'm going to get this in pretty close, I think. now it is time for us to ease up just a little bit. And we'll get ourselves pointed north. So, from this point on, we're simply going to want to try to dock. And as it turns out, this isn't as hard as you might think to get going with Navy fish. I mean, sure, it's difficult if you're not using Navy fish, because the one thing you want to do is you want to make sure that everybody's lined up and there's less margins for error this way. However, that having been said, we just want to line ourselves up, and it might be good for us to go ahead and rotate this thing to the proper direction. Which, okay, we need to bring this thing down just a little bit. And it's actually, in this case, it's acceptable to use RCS to keep us lined up, because this isn't as bad as it could be. We do have plenty of RCS here. Let's just lock that in at least. Are we still rotating? Yes, we are. And that is not good. We'll just control from here, and we'll set this guy up so that we remain more or less lined up. Now we will be very slightly offset, so maybe the better deal for us will be to use this docking clamp. Let's get ourselves, let's try a dock instead with this guy, or that is the target. It's difficult to tell sometimes. However, one thing that's not difficult to tell is we are veering slightly off the course, and that we need to correct it. And so, given that, I think we're going to start moving in just a little bit, because we do want to make some progress towards this. Let's bring up our resources. We still have plenty of monopropellant, which is great. Monopropellant is a nice thing to have plenty of. And we can send a refueling mission out here at some point between, when we get Kethane going. It actually get a lot out of it. That's what's nice about this entire thing, is there is, some hope that we might be able to easily refuel our vessel. So let's try this, I guess. We definitely, I don't know if we're bringing in our horizontal or our vertical velocity in enough. And it seems like we do want to, adjust for that just a little bit. But, yeah, we are, very close to docking at this point. I think we can kick up our, we can kick up our, forward velocity some. Just a little bit, anyhow. And let's just take a look. Is this going to be lined up the way we want it to? I believe the answer to that is probably going to be no. Let's see what happens when we set this as a target. I think this is the alignment we want. This should put us more or less in line with, and we do have a lot of course corrections to make. I think this is probably a better alignment for us. I mean, unfortunately, that is okay. Go the other way. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's going to be rather difficult to tell. Let's just bring this guy in just a little bit. I mean, I think we'll be fine on this. It's not. It is a difficult docking, to be sure, because we're swaying a lot, and I just can't seem to get I can't seem to get us lined up properly. However, what we can do for that is we can get this guy going. Unfortunately, the SAS is wanting to oh no, come back a lot. The SAS is wanting to throw us for a loop here. I think it does have a lot to do with the fact that no, come down. No, shit. We'll get this thing lined up, I'm sure. It's just we may. This is a little bit bothersome. I think, though, we are. Let's see. Are we in fact connected? Undock, and undock. Cool. So we actually are connected. That means we just have a little bit of housekeeping to do, and then we are finished. One thing in particular to do is to transfer this fuel back. Because as it turns out, we probably had a little bit of excess. And that, of course, I mean, excess is good for us. But no, we actually didn't have much in the way of excess, surprisingly. That does surprise me just a little bit. But, yeah, now that we've done that, we'll want to, let's not control from here. Let's undock this, this tricoupler here and get that ship out of the way. And what's going on here? We have a really interesting deal going on. Now we just need to burn prograde, and we will, of course, we should burn into the surface of Minmus. Now the question is, how did this change our orbit? And it turns out not really that much. So, we now, of course, have, this guy right here that's, we're very slightly off, but I'd say this is a fairly decent attempt to the Minmus station, and next episode we're actually going to be sending some hardware up here so that Ribrick won't be alone anymore. So until then, this has been Thy Lord Root, and I will see you later.